There is a silence spreading across modern lands, and almost no one notices. The most sensitive hearts, the clearest souls, are withdrawing from human noise. Not in anger, not in contempt. They are simply departing, leaving the system, forsaking the clamor of cities, stepping away from strife and illusions. Tolkien saw this as part of an inevitable cycle. When the soil of the world grows barren in spirit, those who still carry the spark of the sacred must withdraw to preserve it. He spoke, in essence, of the call westward, the inner urge that stirs when the soul can no longer endure the world's falsehood and corruption. The more awakened a soul becomes, the more it feels the dissonance of a corrupted civilization. And this withdrawal is neither cowardice nor nostalgia. It is the natural instinct of one who realizes that to keep taking part in the noise is to betray one's own light. When someone begins to see progress disguised as decay, truth veiled in lies, the artificial glow trying to replace the sun, that one feels the agony of being in a world that has forgotten what is real. And then the heart begins to whisper, "Go." The modern world, Tolkien said, is a tapestry woven of shared illusions. Its power depends on forgetfulness. The farther people stray from truth, the stronger the system that binds them becomes. He saw that structure as a soulless machine, driven by fear, by ambition, by clamor. Awakening breaks that spell. The awakened one sees the emptiness behind haste, the weariness behind power, the loneliness behind masks. And once you see this, you cannot unsee it. The vision does not fade. Tolkien understood this solitude of the awakened. The wise, in his eyes, was always an exile, not out of superiority, but because his eyes still took in the beauty the world had abandoned. It is painful to dwell within that which has lost the brilliance of truth. This is the curse of lucidity. You begin speaking a language few understand. Time slows, the gaze deepens, and what once seemed normal now sounds like noise. Living among others becomes a weary translation between the authentic self and a disguised world. That is why the awakened withdraw, not out of scorn, but out of exhaustion. Every day demands pretending not to see. Every conversation demands pretending to agree. Every space requires dimming one's light just to fit. And there comes a time when the spirit simply says, "Enough." Tolkien believed that evil is not always loud. Sometimes it is subtle, bureaucratic, dressed in what passes for normality. So the purer the gaze, the more unbearable it becomes to witness the small corruptions the world treats as natural. The awakened sense falsehood as one senses thin air, not with judgment, but with sensitivity. When the heart becomes true, it can no longer endure artifice. The presence of lie, vanity, emptiness, all becomes heavy, almost physical. To live amidst the modern world becomes spiritual suffocation. That is why the awakened turn toward nature, toward silence, toward simplicity. Tolkien saw in these not an escape, but a return to essence. In the living earth, in waters, in trees, the echo of uncorrupted creation still remains. There, the soul breathes again. And there is another reason for the withdrawal. Once one discovers one's inner truth, one can no longer play roles. But the world demands masks. The social mask, the professional role, the appearance of success. Yet for one who has touched one's own essence, living in appearance becomes a kind of death. Before the awakening, it was possible to smile by convention, to repeat opinions, to go with the flow. After the awakening, all that sounds hollow. The authentic being does not fit molds. Tolkien saw this moment as the beginning of the inner crossing, the phase in which spirit must retreat in order to rebuild. It is not misanthropy, it is the preservation of the soul. The spirit must retreat to heal the wounds of life among the false. But this retreat is not the end. It is the time of the seed, the sacred interval in which the being remakes itself to later bloom. Tolkien believed that true retreat always prepares a purer return, not to blend back into the noise, but to offer a new sound, clearer, to those who still listen. The awakened do not vanish from weakness. They vanish because they have grown too strong to pretend weakness. They depart to safeguard what the world has forgotten: simplicity, purity, the silent love of truth. And when they return, they do not come back the same. They no longer seek to live among shadows, but to kindle small lights where the darkness seems to reign. They know they cannot save the world, but they can keep alive the spark that one day will save it. Tolkien would say that this withdrawal is not flight, but faithfulness. Faithfulness to what is higher, older, purer. There is, however, something that Tolkien also sensed within the shadows of the world. That awakening is not an end, but the beginning of a long and arduous journey. To awaken is to see, and seeing hurts. It is to gaze upon the fabric of time and perceive its cracks, its loose threads, the wear of what once seemed eternal. And yet to keep loving the world, not the corrupted world, but the glimpse of what it might still become. The truly awakened one does not flee from reality. He walks through it with new eyes. He knows that behind the pain there is something else, something that beats quietly beneath the ruins. It is this almost invisible faith that keeps him standing when all seems lost. Tolkien called this spark eucatastrophe, the moment when hope returns amid the darkness, not by human strength, but by grace. Awakening, therefore, is also an act of hope, the recognition that even in decay, goodness can still bloom. But this hope is not naive. It is born from a deep understanding of the fall, of corruption, of limitation. The awakened soul does not idealize the world. It accepts it in its imperfection, and precisely because of that, chooses to sow goodness in silence. Every pure gesture, every true word, every selfless act of love becomes a seed cast into the soil of the night. and perhaps the world will never see these seeds blossom.
But the awakened one does not act for recognition. He acts because he has understood that light does not exist to be admired, but to be offered. Tolkien believed that even the smallest act of kindness bears weight in the fate of the world, and that no light, however faint, is ever in vain. Thus, even when the awakened soul withdraws, it is not disconnected from humanity. It watches from afar, like one who tends a forgotten garden. It knows that one day the seeds will sprout, even if it is no longer here to see them. And in that silent surrender, the spirit finds its peace, the certainty that to live with purity, even in solitude, is the deepest form of resistance. The awakened are not abandoning the world. They are weaving, in silence, the foundations of a new dawn. If you feel the call for silence, for simplicity, for withdrawal, know this: it is not surrender. It is the spirit breathing freely. It is the heart turning to the west, seeking the light that the modern world can no longer reflect. The awakened are disappearing, not from weariness, but from hope. Hope that by keeping the flame away from the noise, it may survive the night and one day illuminate the world anew.